Hello, avid scholars. It's Mrs. Cruz, and if you've been following along with me, I've been following this schedule to do some daily tasks. So today we're up to Thursday to complete the daily tasks there. Before we talk about Thursday, though, ask yourself, have you met this week's scholar goal? Have you contacted each teacher at least once per week through a comment on Google Classroom, through an email, or showing up on Zoom or Parent Square? So hopefully you are reaching out to us because honestly, the part that we miss most is being able to talk to you guys. Okay, so today for Thursday's task, we are looking at pages 24 to 30. So we're going to finish chapter 1 and we're going to finish our last text dependent question. Also today, we have our Thursday's discussion topic. So for today's topic, you are posting a question that you create from chapter 1. And well, I say posting, but you have two options, right? So option A, post it on the discussion board that I sent out yesterday. And in order to get full credit, also try to answer 2 classmates' questions on Google Classroom. And then option B is to attend a Zoom session today and participate in that 30-minute session for full credit. Today's sessions are going to take place at 1:30 if you're in periods 3 and 5. And at 2 o'clock if you're in periods 4 and 6. So hopefully, I hope to see a lot of you there since it gives us a chance to really discuss the book, and that makes reading it more interesting, I think. Okay, so tomorrow your chapter 1 is due already. Turn in the note, but if you're following along with me, you should be ready to turn it in today too. So that's also an option. And then tomorrow I will post our first quiz. Okay, so far we've already done the vocabulary. We've already answered questions number 1, 2, and 3. So we're left with this last question on why does little man get in trouble, and why does he do this? So just take a moment to think back to what we read yesterday because we actually already got started on answering this. If you guys recall yesterday's reading, we were really looking at their first day of school already. And at the moment, Cassie and Little Man are in the same class because Cassie's teacher's subbing in for Little Man's teacher, and they started handing out the books. So hopefully you start remembering right now, like what made him so angry. Okay, as I'm scrolling through this, I'm looking for where we last left off, and I know that it looks like we left off right here in this section. And I already started highlighting in green some possible pieces of evidence for question number 4. So it looks here, he says, I said, may I have another book, please, ma'am? He squeaked, that one's dirty. And so going back to Little Man's character, we know that he likes everything to be really neat. So he gets a book that's dirty, he asks for one back, or he asks for another one. And do you guys remember the teacher's response? Was it positive or negative? It was negative. She gets really upset at him and tells him to be grateful. And so he ends up, not saying anything else until he starts looking through the book. And this is where we left off. But as he stared at the book's inside cover, his face clouded, changing from sulky acceptance to puzzlement. His brows furrowed. Then his eyes grew wide, and suddenly he sucked in his breath and sprang from his chair like a wounded animal, flinging the book onto the floor and stomping madly upon it. Okay, so I highlighted that because that shows his reaction to something that he saw in the book. So we know that if he's stomping on it, we know he saw something that made him feel really upset. And we know, making predictions, you can only predict how his teacher is about to react. So let's keep reading, and that could even be a question that we could ask here, right? Why does Little Man stomp on his book? Okay, so that could even be a question that you ask in the discussion today in Zoom or in the discussion board. Let's get started with today's reading now. Miss Crocker rushed to Little Man and grabbed him up in powerful hands. She shook him vigorously, then set him on the floor again. Now, just what's gone into you, Clayton Chester? But Little Man said nothing. He just stood staring at the open book, shivering with indignant anger. Pick it up, she ordered. No, defied Little Man. No? I'll give you 10 seconds to pick up that book, boy, or I'm going to get my switch. Little man bit his lower lip, and I knew that he was not going to pick up the book. Rapidly, I turned to the inside cover of my own book and saw immediately what had made Little Man so furious. Okay, so just pausing really quick. We do have a footnote here, Switch. And then no, it's not the Nintendo Switch. Haha, just kidding. So it says here, Switch. It's a slender whip or rod used for punishment. So it was used to hit. And so we know like she's threatening to go get something to hit him with. And we know like answering the question, our main question is like, what does he do to get in trouble? So I think part of it we can see that he's defying his teacher. So I think that's important. And then here, Cassie says that she knows he's not going to pick it up. Even though she's threatening to hit him, she knows her little brother and she's like, nope, he's not going to do it. So I'm going to highlight that too. The fact that even with the threat, he's not doing it. Okay, so Cassie says she looks to see what made him mad, and we're about to find out. Stamped on the inside cover was a chart which read, so this is the chart, property of the Board of Education, Spokane County, Mississippi, September 1922. Okay, date of issuance. So this is the date that that book was assigned. The condition was new. The race of the student was white. So you go year by year, 1923, 1924, and so on. The condition of the book goes from new, excellent, very good, good, average, poor, to very poor. And if you notice here, it goes from white all the way until the 12th time it's used, and it says Negro. The blank lines continued down to line 20, and I knew that they had all been reserved for black students. A knot of anger swelled in my throat and held there. But as Miss Crocker directed Little Man to bend over the whipping chair, I put aside my anger and jumped. Okay, so right now you should be asking yourself, like, what made him so angry? Like, what's this chart telling you? Okay, if you don't know yet, let's keep reading to see if we can figure it out. So Cassie says, Miss Crocker, don't, please, I cried. Miss Crocker's dark eyes warned me not to say another word. I know why he done it. You want part of the switch, Cassie? No, I said hastily. I just want to tell you how come Little Man done what he done. Sit down, she ordered, as I hurried toward her with the open book in my hand. Holding the book up to her, I said, see, Miss Crocker, see what it says? They give us these old books, and they don't want them when they didn't want them anymore. She regarded me impatiently, but did not look at the book. Now, how could he know what it says? He can't read. Yes, he can. He been reading since he was 4. He can't read all them big words, but he can read them columns. See what's in the last row? Look, please look, Miss Crocker. This time Miss Crocker did look, but her face did not change. Then, holding her head, she gazed unblinkingly down at me. See what they called us? I said, afraid she had not seen. That's what you are, she said coldly. Now go sit down. I shook my head, realizing now that Miss Crocker did not even know what I was talking about. She had looked at the page and had understood nothing. I said, sit down, Cassie. Okay, before we go on to the next page, I think we should see the clues here that explains a little bit more why Little Man's upset. So Cassie tries to explain it to the teacher, and she says, they give us these old books when they didn't want to know more. So you should be asking yourself, who's they and who's us? And in this case, the they is, you can interpret it to be like the school system gave us, in this case would be like the black community, these books when they didn't want them anymore. Or you can even say the first they could even be like white people, right? Because they're giving it to them when they don't want it anymore. Okay, let's move on to the next page. I started slowly toward my desk, but as the hickory stick sliced the tense air, I turned back. Miss Crocker, I said, I don't want my book neither. The switch landed hard upon Little Man's upturned bottom. Miss Crocker looked questioningly at me as I reached up to her desk and placed the book upon it. Then she swung the switch 5 more times, and discovering that Little Man had no intention of crying, ordered him up. All right, Cassie, she sighed, turning to me. Come on and get yours. By the end of the school day, I had decided that I would tell Mama everything before Miss Crocker had a chance to do so. From 9 years of trial and error, I had learned that punishment was always less severe when I poured out the whole truth to Mama on my own before she had heard anything from anyone else. I knew that Miss Crocker had not spoken to Mama during the lunch period, for she had spent the whole hour in the classroom preparing for the afternoon session. So just a quick pause here. This is where it's important to remember that their mom is also a teacher. So kind of think about that, like how awkward it must be that their mom is co-workers with the teacher that just hit them. Okay, let's keep going. As soon as class was dismissed, I sped from the room, weaving a path through throngs of students happy to be free. But before I could reach the 7th grade class building, I had the misfortune to collide with Mary Lou's father. Mr. Welliver looked down on me with surprise that I would actually bump into him, then proceeded to lecture me on the virtues of watching where one was going. Meanwhile, Miss Crocker briskly crossed the lawn to Mama's class building. By the time I escaped Mr. Welliver, she had already disappeared into the darkness of the hallway. Mama's classroom was in the back. I crept silently along the quiet hall and peeped cautiously into the open doorway. Mama, pushing a strand of her long, crinkly hair back into the chignon of the base of her slender neck, was seated at her desk watching Miss Crocker thrust a book before her. "Just look at that, Mary," Miss Crocker said, thumping the book twice with her forefinger. "A perfectly good book ruined. Look at that broken binding and those footmarks all over it." Mama did not speak as she studied the book. "And here's the one Cassie wouldn't take," she said, placing the second book on Mama's desk with an outraged slam. "At least she didn't have a tantrum and stomp all over hers. I tell you, Mary, I just don't know what's going on into those children today. I just don't know what got into those children today. I always knew Cassie was rather high-strung, but little man, he's always such a perfect little gentleman." Mama glanced at the book I had rejected and opened the front cover so that the offensive pages of both books faced her. "You say Cassie said it was because of this front page that she and little man didn't want the books?" Mama asked quietly. "Yes, ain't that something?" Miss Crocker said, forgetting her teacher training school diction in her indignation. "The very idea! That's on all the books, and why they got so upset about it, I'll never know." "You punished them?" asked Mama, glancing up at Miss Crocker. "Well, I certainly did, but both of them good with my hickory stick. Wouldn't you have?" When Mama did not reply, she added defensively, "I had a perfect right to." "Of course you did, Daisy," Mama said, turning back to the books again. "They disobeyed you." But her tone was so quiet and noncommittal that I knew Miss Crocker was not satisfied with her reaction. "Well, I thought you would have wanted to know, Mary, in case you wanted to give them a piece of your mind also." Mama smiled up at Miss Crocker and said rather absently, "Yes, of course, Daisy. Thank you." Then she opened her desk drawer and pulled out some paper, a pair of scissors, and a small brown bottle. Okay, this is where you should be asking yourself, like, what's the mom's reaction? So the teacher, Miss Crocker, just tells her, like, why she hit her children. So what do you guys think? Is the mom taking sides here? Is she still processing? So you should start asking yourself, like, what's her reaction? Let's read a little bit more. Miss Crocker, dismayed by Mama's seeming unconcern for the seriousness of the matter, thrust her shoulders back and began moving away from the desk. "You understand that if they don't have those books to study from, I'll have to fail them in both reading and composition, since I plan to base all my lessons around." She stopped abruptly and stared in amazement at Mama. "Mary, what in the world are you doing?" Mama did not answer. She had trimmed the paper to the size of the books and was now dipping a gray-looking glue from the brown bottle onto the inside cover of one of the books. Then she took the paper and placed it over the glue. "Mary Logan, do you know what you're doing? That book belongs to the county. If somebody from the superintendent's office ever comes down here and sees that book, you'll be in real trouble." Mama laughed and picked up another book. "In the first place, no one cares enough to come down here, and in the second place, if anyone should come, maybe he could see all the things we need. Current books for all our subjects, not just somebody's old throwaways, desks, papers, blackboards, erasers, maps, chalk." Her voice trailed off as she glued the second book. So here, ask yourself, what is she doing? And then we will continue this on the next video.